Okay guys, in today's video we have some very significant information about the PlayStation 5 to go over, some new stuff that has come out that I think a lot of you are going to be very interested in because it has to do with something we've been talking about and speculating upon for a while now on this channel, and this is essentially the closest thing we are going to get as of right now to an answer, to a definitive answer. And that question is, will Sony be doing PlayStation 5 exclusives in the sense of them being truly exclusive, or can we expect most of their exclusives or all of them to potentially be cross-gen with the PlayStation 4? Now, according to Kotaku's Jason Schreier, based off of what he knows, we know he has a lot of inside information. No, Sony is not planning on doing cross-gen titles when it comes to any exclusive games they're going to have for the PlayStation 5. Now, that is a big deal, and we are going to be discussing why that's a big deal in this video. The other thing we're going to be talking about is how it seems very likely we are going to be getting a PlayStation 5 Pro at some point during the PlayStation 5's life cycle. This is something that has come out recently from Game Informer, where they actually talked to the individual who is in charge of all this stuff there at Sony, and he says basically, look, the PS4 Pro was a test case to see if going into the PlayStation 5 life cycle, if we should proceed in doing this, if this is something that can actually work. So we're going to discuss that as well, but starting here with the PlayStation 5 exclusives, according to Kotaku's Jason Schreier, he spoke recently on the Split Screen podcast that Kotaku does, and he said that based on what he knows, the games that Sony will be launching with the PlayStation 5, the exclusive games that is, will not be cross-gen. Now, that's based off of what he knows right now, so obviously he's implying that things could change, but that's kind of Sony's plan currently. And he does point out that, there's going to be a lot of other games that are cross-gen, such as third-party titles and whatnot, but when it comes to Sony's plan for their exclusive games from the launch going forward with the PlayStation 5, they will not be cross-gen. And I think that this does come as a little bit of a surprise, and I only say that because I think a lot of people were maybe expecting Sony to be more lenient in this area because of how many PlayStation 4 units are out there on the market. They kind of maybe figured, well, we want to take advantage of that, so we want to make these games cross-gen. But the thing that people, a lot of people do understand this, but some people still just don't get it when it comes to Sony. The thing about Sony, and I'll tell you, this is why people like myself and others who are fans of console gaming, people who love console gaming, that traditional console gaming experience, we grew up playing it that way, it's our favorite way to experience games. This is why we love Sony so much, because they still care greatly about selling console hardware. They care so much to the point where they're like, you know what? Our idea is we want to move people over from the PlayStation 4 to the PlayStation 5 as fast as we possibly can, at a rate that we've never been able to achieve before. And they are aware that the only way they're going to do that, the most important way, is with the games. Not just the quality of their games and how great some of their games are going to be, obviously, but by keeping them actually exclusive to the console. Now, there's a lot of people who are trying to act these days as if like this doesn't matter or this is anti-consumer or whatever, and I don't really care about what they had to say, because for me, as a consumer, I consider myself a pretty hardcore gamer and an enthusiast. As somebody who has grown up playing on the console, it's my favorite way to play. I love that Sony's doing this. I love that they are prioritizing selling their console hardware, and this is how they keep it alive and thriving. Now, it's a far cry from what Microsoft is doing, and this is, in my opinion, going to be the biggest separating factor between Microsoft and Sony going into next gen. It truly is. Where Microsoft, they are going to have Scarlet, and I'm sure it's going to be a great console, and apparently now they're going to have Lockhart. Scarlet's probably going to be $500, Lockhart's probably going to be like $300 or $400. But the thing is, we know that most of their games, and I know somebody from Xbox recently went on record saying that they plan on supporting the Xbox One. I think it was Matt Booty, where he was talking about they're not going to leave the Xbox One behind, at least not for a little while, thus confirming essentially that, yeah, they're going to have a lot of cross-gen titles most likely. Like the first year of the Xbox Scarlet's life cycle, most of the games that come out will probably be cross-gen titles. We know that this is Microsoft's plan. We already know that Halo Infinite, their big marquee exclusive, launch exclusive, or first-party title, I should call it, not exclusive, that's going to be launching alongside Scarlet, that's also going to be available on the Xbox One. That's also going to be available on PC. And while that's good for a lot of people where they're like, oh, that's pro-consumer, that's great, that's actually really bad for the console. And that is essentially taking away a lot or most of the incentive for people to upgrade to a next-gen console. And this is going to be why Sony is going to greatly outsell Xbox Scarlet come next generation. And people will always try to tell you sales don't matter. Why do you care about sales? I'll tell you why I care about sales. It's as I said earlier in this video, I care about the console market, man. I don't want to see that experience be diminished. I don't want to see that experience take a back seat because other things are becoming more lucrative for these companies, right? I don't want to see that take a back seat to older hardware. I don't want to see that take a back seat to potentially cloud gaming or services or anything like that. The traditional console experience coupled with amazing single-player AAA exclusive games, those are the two things that Sony does incredibly well, better than anybody else in the industry. And to hear that that's essentially what they're going to be prioritizing going into next gen, that's music to my ears. That is not what Microsoft is prioritizing. Microsoft prioritizes other things. They prioritize services, they prioritize microtransactions and multiplayer games, and while I do think Sony is going to start tapping into that a little bit more going into next gen, there's no doubt that Microsoft has had a terrible lack of single-player AAA experiences, story-driven experiences at that. And so I'm not trying to necessarily make this some kind of like bashing video against Microsoft or anything like that, but when I say that this is truly going to be the differentiating factor, the main differentiating factor between Sony and Microsoft going into next gen, I really can't stress that enough. If this turns out to be true, which I think it is, I think Jason Schreier is a very reliable source when it comes to this stuff, and I think it just kind of makes sense that Sony is going to want to make their games truly exclusive to PS5. I'm telling you, that's why the PS5 is going to sell like crazy. When you think about that and you think about the upcoming games, like let's think about the launch of the PS5. We could expect maybe Blue Point's next remake, which depending on which game that's going to be, it's going to be big. Gran Turismo 7 is going to probably be pretty significant. And we can probably expect Guerrilla Games, their second team. We know they're either working on a SOCOM game or maybe a new Killzone game of some sort. We know that Naughty Dog is working on a multiplayer game. So these are all things that maybe we could expect near or around the launch of the PS5. But then we have the big ones, right? We have Spider-Man 2, which apparently is going to come just 1 year after the PlayStation 5 is out on the market, right? We're going to have a sequel to Horizon Zero Dawn, the next God of War game. You know, Naughty Dog's next game that's not their multiplayer game, but their next single-player game after The Last of Us Part 2. Things like this, Days Gone 2. These are this is why the PS5 is going to sell like crazy. And so I just have to really emphasize this in this video where this is a big deal, guys. Like if what Jason Schreier is saying is true, this is a big deal. And this is further confirmation that Sony's intentions are to sell as many hardware units as possible. They still greatly care about it. And as somebody where that's my favorite way of experiencing games, I 100% support that. That's why I think sometimes PlayStation fans are a little bit misunderstood where it's like, oh, you like exclusive games? You're anti-consumer. No, not necessarily. You'll find that most PlayStation fans, and the same with Nintendo fans as well, the reason why we love exclusive games is not only because is the quality inherently going to have to be a little bit higher compared to some other games, right? Because they're just going to be focusing on a single platform or a single console, and that's easier for the devs. But it's mainly because if this is the way you enjoy playing games, then it matters to you, yeah. Like if you love console gaming and you want to see it do well and continue to thrive, then there's nothing wrong with caring about how well a console may or may not be selling. Because the truth is, Microsoft may be supporting the Xbox console, right? But it has taken a back seat because they just weren't able to take the market the way they thought they were going to be able to. Now I'm really starting to rant here. I apologize for that, but I just think that this is very important stuff that we need to highlight where I've been trying to say for a while now that the reason why I'm going to stick with Sony is because they're doing the things that I want them to do. Like anything I could hope that for them to do, they're doing it. Sure, we can get a little bit worried about, oh, are they going to start pursuing cloud gaming, much more heavily? Are they going to start putting their exclusive games day and date on PlayStation Now and then put PlayStation Now on all devices? What about them putting games on PC? I'm not worried about that stuff because I'll tell you this, as long as Sony cares about selling hardware, they're not going to do these things. Sony does care about, services and cloud gaming and all this stuff. They have to. I mean, there's no doubt that it can be very lucrative for them, but they know where their bread and butter is at. They know where their market lies, and they're going to support that. So I can't really emphasize that enough. That's why I continue to talk about it. But I want to end this video by briefly talking to you guys about the potential of a PlayStation 5 Pro, because it seems as though, according to Game Informer and an individual that they interviewed there, it sounds like a PlayStation 5 Pro is a safe bet. Says here in an interview with Game Informer as part of the 25th birthday of PlayStation, Masayasu Ito, hopefully I pronounced his name correctly, Executive Vice President of Hardware Engineering and Operation at Sony Interactive Entertainment, might have just provided us with a hint. According to him, the PS4 Pro was basically a test case after Sony realized that the PlayStation 5 lifecycle would have to be different than that of previous generations. So he goes on to say, indeed, in the past, the cycle for a new platform was 7 to 10 years, but in view of the very rapid development and evolution of technology, it's really a 6 to 7 year platform cycle. Then we cannot fully catch up with the rapid development of the technology. Therefore, our thinking is that as far as a platform is concerned for the PS5, it's a cycle that may be 6 to 7 years, but doing that, a platform life cycle, we should be able to change the hardware itself and try to incorporate advancements in technology. That was the thinking behind it, and the test case of that thinking was the PS4 Pro that launched in the midway of the PS4 launch cycle. So there you go. This is confirmation from an individual within Sony who is in charge of this stuff saying that this was the purpose of the PlayStation 4 Pro. Sony wanted to see how the market would respond to this. We do know that Sony was the first to do this. They were out here before Microsoft, and we can only imagine it was successful considering Microsoft ended up doing the same thing a year later. And we also know that I think it's like, 1 in every 4 or every 5 PS4s that are sold is actually a Pro model. So I'd say, all things considered, it has been a success for them. And this is Sony basically saying that we can maybe expect this during the PlayStation 5's life cycle. Now, they're not going to come out here and outright announce that, nor are they going to do a PS5 Pro model at the launch of the PS5. They're not going to do that. They don't want people to be scared off. They're not going to come out here 3 years before and say, hey, just so you guys know, in 3 years, we're going to have a PS5 Pro, so if you want to hold off on that. No, they want people to upgrade as quickly as possible, but part of that is going to be keeping up with the tech, and I think the PS4 Pro has proven that they can do this successfully. Now, how many people are going to realistically sit back and say, I'll wait to get a PS5 Pro? I'm sure some will, but the majority of people, honestly, once they start seeing the games that are going to come out within the first couple years of the PlayStation 5 being on the market, them being exclusive, they're going to go out there and they're going to buy a PS5, and a lot of them are probably going to actually be okay with upgrading to a Pro model. Me, if I knew for sure that a Pro model, if an insider came to me and said, hey, MBG, there's going to be a PS5 Pro model and I have proof right here in the next 3 years, would that stop me from buying a PS5? Absolutely not. I'm going to be there day one. I'm going to be there day one for most of these games. And it's like I said before, you just can't put a price on some of these games that are going to come out with the PS5, man. So that's going to do it for the video. Turned out a little bit longer than I wanted it to, but I just, I had to really emphasize this info. I think it's a big deal. I'm not seeing enough people talking about it. I'm telling you, if Sony doesn't have any cross-gen titles or very few cross-gen titles when it comes to their exclusives that they're going to have at the launch of the PS5, that is going to be a big deal in terms of the whole console war and how it's going to kind of separate Microsoft and Sony in a very big way. So let me know your thoughts about this down in the comments below. I'm going to be very interested to see what you guys have to say. What do you think about these, this information coming from Jason Schreier about PS5 exclusives not being cross-gen even at the launch? Let me know what you think about the potential of a PS5 Pro. Be sure to leave the video a like if you enjoyed it, if you found it informative, or if you just enjoyed my commentary. Subscribe to the channel if you're new and haven't already. Hit the bell notification icon so you never miss an upload, and feel free to share this video out on top of all that. But until next time, guys, take care.